Tell me about a time you worked with product owners or business teams. Introduction. This is a common behavioral interview question for software developers, backend developers, full-stack developers, senior developers, and team leads. Interviewers ask this question to understand how you communicate with non-technical stakeholders, how you clarify business requirements, how you translate business needs into technical solutions, how you handle unclear acceptance criteria, how you explain technical trade-offs simply, how you manage scope and delivery expectations. Final solution solves the real business problem. This question is especially important for check Java developers, check backend developers, check Spring Boot developers, check full stack developers, check senior software developers, check team leads, agile teams, system design interviews. The best way to answer this question is by using the STAR method. STAR means S, situation, explain the background. T, task, explain your responsibility. A, action, explain what you personally did. R, result, explain the final outcome. A good interview answer usually spends 10% situation, 10% task, 60% action, 20% result. The most important part is the action section, because interviewers want to understand how you worked with business stakeholders, clarified requirements, and delivered the right solution. Question. Tell me about a time you worked with product owners or business teams. Example 1. Clarifying requirements for a new API situation. In one project, the business team requested a new customer search feature. The initial requirement was high-level and only said that users should be able to search customers quickly. The requirement did not clearly explain filters, sorting, pagination, role access, or expected search behavior. Task. I was responsible for working with the product owner and business team to clarify the requirement and design the backend API. Action. I started by asking questions to understand the real business need. I asked 1. Who will use the search feature? 2. What problem they are trying to solve? 3. Which fields users search by most often? What filters are required for the first release? 4. What fields should appear in the result? 5. What should happen when no records are found? 6. How many records users normally expect? Who should have access to the feature? Then I converted the business answers into technical requirements. I defined endpoint URL, request parameters, response DTO, pagination rules, sorting rules, validation rules, authorization rules, error response format. I also explained to the product owner why pagination was important. Instead of returning all records, pagination would keep the API faster and more scalable. I shared sample request and response JSON so the business team could confirm the expected behavior. Result. The requirements became clear before development went too far. The API was delivered with fewer changes during QA. The business team was happy because the feature matched the actual user workflow. Why this answer works? This answer is strong because it shows business requirement clarification, API design, stakeholder communication, pagination and scalability thinking, clear acceptance criteria, reducing rework. Example 2. Working with product owner on acceptance criteria situation. In one sprint, a user story involved updating customer profile information. The story had unclear acceptance criteria. It did not specify which fields were required, which fields were optional, or which fields could be edited by different user roles. Task. I worked with the product owner and QA team to clarify the acceptance criteria before implementing the feature. Action. I reviewed the story and identified unclear points. The unclear points included COC, required fields, COC, optional fields, editable fields, read-only fields, admin-only fields, validation messages, authorization rules, error scenarios. I scheduled a short discussion with the product owner and QA. During the discussion, I used simple language instead of technical terms. For example, instead of saying authorization rule, I asked, should a normal user be allowed to update this field, or only an admin? I also asked, What should the user see if they enter an invalid value? After the discussion, we updated the story acceptance criteria. Then I implemented the backend validation and authorization checks according to the clarified rules. I also helped QA convert the acceptance criteria into test cases. Result: the team avoided confusion during development and testing. QA had clear scenarios to test. The feature was completed with fewer defects because the rules were clear from the beginning. Why this answer works? This answer is good because it shows acceptance criteria clarification, product owner collaboration, QA alignment, simple communication, validation and authorization thinking, prevention of rework. Example 3. Explaining technical trade-offs to business team situation. In one project, the business wanted a report to show real-time data. From a user perspective, real-time data sounded ideal. However, generating the report in real time would create heavy database load and slow response time. Task: I was responsible for explaining the technical trade-off and helping the business choose a practical solution. Action: I first listened to why the business wanted real-time data. They explained that users needed accurate daily reporting, but they did not necessarily need second-by-second updates. Then I explained the trade-off in simple terms. I said that real-time reporting would require querying a large amount of data every time the user opened the report. That could make the report slow and affect other parts of the system. I proposed 2 options: real-time report with slower performance and higher system load. Scheduled report refresh with faster response and lower system load. I explained that if the report refreshed every hour or once per day, users would get faster performance and the system would be more stable. We reviewed the business need again and confirmed that daily accuracy was more important than instant updates. So we chose a scheduled report generation approach. Result: the business team understood the trade-off. The report met the business need without overloading the system. The final solution was faster, more reliable, and easier to support. Why this answer works? This answer is strong because it shows C. Explaining technical trade-offs, business-friendly communication, performance awareness, avoiding over-engineering, practical decision-making, stakeholder alignment. Example 4. Managing scope for a tight deadline situation. In one release, the business team requested several enhancements for a dashboard. The deadline was tight, and not all requested features could be completed safely in the sprint. Task: I worked with the product owner to separate must-have features from nice-to-have features. Action: I reviewed the requested changes and grouped them by priority. The features included: check, new summary cards, additional filters, export option, role-based visibility, chart improvements, detailed drill-down page. I explained which items were low risk and which items needed more development and testing. I suggested delivering the core dashboard improvements first and moving lower priority items to a later sprint. The first release included: check, required summary cards, check, basic filters, role-based visibility, check, backend API changes, check, validation. The later release would include export option, advanced charts, detailed drill-down page. I also explained the risk of rushing everything into one release. More scope would mean less testing time and higher defect risk. Result: the product owner agreed to reduce the first release scope. The team delivered the most important business value on time. The remaining features were planned for future sprints without creating unnecessary delivery risk. Why this answer works? This answer is good because it shows click scope management, business prioritization, delivery risk communication, MVP thinking, realistic planning, product owner collaboration. Example 5. Translating business rules into backend logic situation. In one project, the business team needed to implement eligibility rules for customer accounts. The rules were described in business language and included several conditions. Task: I was responsible for translating the business rules into backend validation logic. Action. I started by reviewing the rules with the business team. The business rules included: customer must be active, account must not be closed, user must have correct role, request amount must be within allowed limit, certain account types were not eligible, special approval was needed for some cases. I converted these rules into technical conditions. Then I created a decision table to make the logic easier to review. The decision table showed: input condition, expected result, error message, approval requirement, test scenario. I reviewed the decision table with the product owner and QA before coding. After confirmation, I implemented the validation logic in the service layer. I also added unit tests for each rule and integration tests for the main API flows. Result: the backend logic matched the business rules accurately. QA testing was easier because the decision table became a reference. The business team had confidence that the feature behaved as expected. Why this answer works? This answer is strong because it shows translating business rules, decision table usage, backend validation, business and QA alignment, test coverage, reducing misunderstanding. Example 6. Working with business team during production issue situation. In one production issue, users reported incorrect totals in a report. The business team was concerned because the report was used for daily decision-making. Task. I worked with the business team and QA to understand the expected calculation and fix the issue. Action. I first asked the business team to explain how the total should be calculated. Then I compared expected business calculation, current backend calculation, database records, report API response, date filters, edge cases. We found that the issue happened for records near the end of the day because of date and time zone handling. I explained the root cause in simple terms. The backend was using one date interpretation, but the business expected totals based on the business time zone. I updated the date filtering logic to use the correct business time zone consistently. Then I reviewed sample results with the business team and QA. We tested: check, normal date range, check, month-end date range, check, records near midnight, check, daylight saving time scenario. Result: the report totals became accurate. The business team confirmed that the calculation matched their expectation. We also added regression tests to prevent similar reporting issues in the future. Why this answer works? This answer is good because it shows C. Production support, C. Business calculation clarification, C. Time zone issue handling, C. QA collaboration, C. Clear explanation, C. Regression prevention. Example 7. Demoing a feature to product owner situation. In one sprint, we built a new admin feature that allowed authorized users to manage configuration data. The feature was technically complete, but we wanted product owner feedback before final release. Task. I was responsible for demoing the backend behavior and explaining how the feature worked from a user and system perspective. Action. I prepared a simple demo using test data. I walked the product owner through successful admin update, validation error, unauthorized user attempt, audit log entry, rollback behavior, error message shown to user. I avoided deep technical language unless needed. Instead of saying service layer authorization, I explained, even if someone tries to call the API directly, the backend still checks whether they are allowed to perform this action. The product owner asked for one message change to make the validation error clearer for users. I updated the error message and confirmed it with QA. Result: the product owner approved the feature. The validation message became clearer. The demo helped catch a small usability issue before release. Why this answer works? This answer is strong because it shows check product demo, business-friendly explanation, security explanation, user experience improvement, feedback handling, release confidence. Example 8. working with business team on data migration situation. In one project, we needed to migrate old customer records to a new data model. The business team understood the old data better than the development team. Some records had special cases that were not obvious from the database structure. Task. I worked with the business team to understand the data rules and implement the migration safely. Action. I started by analyzing the old data and identifying unclear cases. Then I reviewed those cases with the business team. We discussed curls, old status values, curls, new status mapping, curls, missing fields, curls, duplicate records, curls, inactive customers, curls, special account types, curls, records that should be excluded, curls, records that needed manual review. I created a mapping document that showed how old values would convert to new values. I also added validation checks in the migration job. The migration process included read old records, validate required fields, map old values to new values, skip invalid records with reason, write valid records to new structure, generate error report, allow business review. After a test migration, I shared the summary report with the business team. They reviewed the skipped records and helped confirm which ones needed correction. Result. The migration completed successfully. Business users trusted the result because they were involved in validating the mapping. The error report helped handle special cases instead of silently migrating bad data. Why this answer works? This answer is good because it shows cross-business collaboration, data migration, rule clarification, validation, error reporting, business trust. Best short answer version. If you need a short interview answer, in one project, I worked closely with the product owner and business team on a customer search feature. The initial requirement was high level and only said users should be able to search customers quickly. I asked questions to clarify the real business need, such as who would use the feature, which filters were required, what fields should appear in the result, what should happen when no records were found, and who should have access. Then I translated those answers into backend API requirements, including request parameters, response DTO, pagination, sorting, validation, authorization, and error responses. I also shared sample JSON responses so the product owner could confirm the expected behavior before development went too far. As a result, the requirements became clear, QA testing was smoother, and the API was delivered with fewer changes because the solution matched the actual business workflow. Common mistakes to avoid. 1. Saying only I worked with the product owner. Bad answer. I worked with the product owner and completed the story. Better answer. Explain how you clarified requirements, translated them into technical design, and delivered the right solution. 2. Using too much technical language. Bad answer. I explained the DTO, repository, and service layer implementation. Better answer. Explain technical decisions in business terms, such as performance, risk, user experience, or delivery impact. 3. Not asking questions. Bad answer. I implemented the story as written. Better answer. I asked clarifying questions because the acceptance criteria were incomplete. 4. Ignoring trade-offs. Bad answer. I built everything the business asked for. Better answer. I explained the delivery risk and helped prioritize must-have features for the first release. 5. No result. Bad answer. The business team liked it. Better answer. The requirement became clearer. Rework was reduced, QA testing was smoother, and the feature met the real business need. Best practices for answering this question. Check. Use the STAR method. Explain the business context. Show how you clarified requirements. Ask good questions. Translate business needs into technical design. Explain trade-offs simply. Align with QA on acceptance criteria. Manage scope when needed. Demo the solution when useful. End with business impact. What interviewers are looking for. Interviewers want to see whether you can communicate with non-technical stakeholders, understand business goals, clarify unclear requirements, ask practical questions, Explain technical trade-offs simply. Avoid building the wrong solution. Manage expectations. Collaborate across roles. For senior roles, they also want to see tech, product thinking, stakeholder management, scope control, business impact awareness, risk communication, leadership and requirement clarification, ability to bridge business and technology. Strong words to use in your answer. You can use words like clarified, aligned, translated, confirmed, prioritized, explained, validated, demonstrated, documented, collaborated, refined, reduced rework, delivered business value. Example: I worked with the product owner to clarify the business workflow, translated the requirement into API behavior, confirmed the acceptance criteria with QA, and delivered a solution that matched the real user need. Good product owner or business team topics you can use. Depending on your experience, you can talk about clarifying requirements for an API, defining acceptance criteria, explaining technical trade-offs, managing scope for a tight deadline, translating business rules into backend logic, production issue with business impact, demoing a feature to product owner, data migration with business validation, calculation rules, user role and permission clarification, prioritizing MVP features, clarifying error messages, dashboard feature planning, workflow automation, release readiness discussion. Final summary. Tell me about a time you worked with product owners or business teams is an important interview question because software developers must build solutions that solve real business problems. The best answer should include what business problem existed, why collaboration was needed, your responsibility, what questions you asked, how you clarified requirements, how you translated business needs into technical design, how you explained trade-offs, how you aligned with QA, what result you achieved. Good examples include CAPS, API requirement clarification, acceptance criteria refinement, technical trade-off explanation, scope management, business rule translation, production report issue, feature demo, data migration. The strongest answers show communication, business understanding, technical translation, stakeholder alignment, and delivery of real business value.